And Jen Psaki, seasoned, respected, admired, had no words left. By now, the debate no longer felt like a panel. It had evolved into a cultural turning point, a televised flashpoint in the long war between polished political narratives and raw, public frustration. Karoline Levit wasn't just winning on points. She had redefined the terms of battle. Jen Psaki, once the face of progressive media poise, now sat unusually still. Her voice had vanished beneath the weight of a truth no amount of talking points could smother. The moderator cleared his throat, desperate to restore balance. "Psaki," he asked, "do you want to respond to Ms. Levit's statements regarding the Afghanistan withdrawal and Ukraine funding?" Jen inhaled slowly. I served during an incredibly complex period. We made tough calls, and yes, mistakes were made, but no one was held accountable," Karoline interjected, her tone flat and final. "That's the problem, Jen. You represent a generation of leadership that escapes every failure by saying it's complicated. But Americans don't get to hide behind excuses. They pay for every one of those complications, with jobs, with gas bills, with funerals." The room fell still. Then Karoline shifted gears and struck harder. "You've been in politics long enough to know how to deflect, how to delay, how to dilute outrage into apathy, but what you didn't count on was someone who knew the playbook and wasn't afraid to burn it." Psaki opened her mouth, but Karoline leaned forward. "You mocked me before we came on air, called me ambitious, said I had a lot to learn. You didn't say it to encourage me. You said it to contain me, to keep people like me in line. But you can't contain what's already moving." Her voice was quiet now, dangerously calm. "You see a young woman with confidence and call it arrogance. You hear conviction and call it inexperience. You see millions of Americans who've had enough and call them misinformed. That's not leadership." Karoline turned to the audience. "That's fear." Gasps. Psaki looked stunned. Her signature smirk, the one she wielded so effectively behind the press room podium, was gone. What remained was a visible, slow realization. She was outmatched. Backstage, CNN's control room was in chaos. Producers scrambled. One anchor whispered off camera, "This is no longer a debate. It's a transfer of momentum live in front of us." On social media, the clips were relentless. Karoline just dismantled the entire Psaki doctrine. This isn't confidence. This is command. Even the New York Times' live blog admitted Psaki, once an unbeatable media tactician, now looks like she's clinging to scripts that stopped working 20 minutes ago. Then Karoline dropped the final match. "You said I wasn't qualified, Jen. But here's the truth. I didn't need a credential to stand up for the people who elected me. I didn't need approval to speak for those who were silenced. And I didn't need your permission to win this debate. Silence, not dead air. The kind of silence that says something historic just happened." Karoline folded her hands, calm again. And across the stage, Jen Psaki blinked twice and said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. As the final camera panned out, the set of the exchange was bathed in quiet awe. Not because of silence, but because no one, not the moderator, not Jen Psaki, not the producers, knew how to follow what had just unfolded. Karoline Levit had walked into the studio as the underdog. She walked out as a defining voice of her generation. The moderator, visibly rattled, cleared his throat. "Thank you, ladies, for a lively," and he paused, glancing at Psaki, then Karoline, unexpected exchange. Psaki gave a thin nod, her eyes no longer trying to dominate, but simply survive. The woman who once held court in the White House briefing room now looked like a faded headline. Her responses drowned beneath the flood of Karoline's clarity. But Karoline, she sat tall, hands calmly folded on the desk, chin high. Her closing words came not in a roar, but in something far more dangerous. Certainty. "I didn't come here tonight to argue with sound bites," she began. "I came to say what millions think but are too often told to stay quiet about." She turned to Psaki briefly. I respect service, but service without results is theater, and the American people are tired of being the audience to your performance." Then she turned to the camera. "The future belongs to those who speak with truth, not polish, with clarity, not credentials. And if this debate proved anything tonight, it's that facts, conviction, and courage don't need a teleprompter." The crowd, silent until then, erupted. Not wild partisan noise, but thunderous affirmation. Karoline rose from her chair. She didn't smirk. She didn't wave. She simply nodded, then walked off the stage. Backstage, a CNN staffer whispered to a colleague, "We just watched a generational shift, and it wasn't in Jen's favor." Within minutes, social media detonated. Karoline didn't win. She redefined the whole damn thing. Number sign not qualified. After that, she's more qualified than the last 5 press secretaries combined. Jen Psaki just got steamrolled by someone. Half her age and twice her spine. By midnight, Fox News, Newsmax, and even independent podcasters had flooded their coverage with the same line, Karoline Levit's breakout moment. But it didn't end there. The next morning, Karoline trended at #1 in the U.S. Clips of her calmly citing Department of Education stats side by side with Psaki's speechless reaction circulated across every platform. Students posted her lines over their own campus. Debates. Veterans tweeted support. Suburban parents, small business owners, and even some disillusioned moderates shared the same phrase, "She gets it." Psaki, meanwhile, canceled her scheduled post-debate interview. Her team issued a short statement. "We stand by Jen's message, but tonight the narrative got away from us. It wasn't just a loss. It was a passing of the microphone." Karoline, now back in her dressing room, opened her phone. Dozens of missed calls, messages from political strategists, journalists, even former critics, all now asking, "What's next?" She smiled faintly, then tapped a reply. "I didn't come to play a part. I came to change the story." And she had. From the moment Jen Psaki said, "You're not qualified," to the final step off that stage, Karoline Levit didn't just push back, she owned the moment. And America, it was still talking about her the next morning. It started with one line, "You're not qualified." But Karoline turned that line into collapse, into transformation, into awakening. This wasn't just a debate. It was a reckoning. Words clashed, yes, but so did arrogance and accountability. Jen had experience, elite backing, and media comfort on her side. Karoline had truth and conviction. And that night, conviction won. Truth won. Karoline Levit didn't just defend herself. She gave voice to millions who've been mocked, silenced, dismissed. And to those who tried to contain that voice, she delivered one final message. You underestimated us. We've woken up. This wasn't just a victory. It was the beginning of something bigger. Looked directly into the nearest live stream camera. To every young woman watching, don't let them silence you with hashtags. Don't let them reduce you to outfits and buzzwords. They want you quiet because your voice terrifies them. A beat. And that's how you know it matters. Karoline's final line. That's how you know it matters had cracked something open. For a moment, the room was still. Then the shouting began. A group of students in the upper left section stood up suddenly, waving signs. Hate speech is not free speech. Protect marginalized voices and speech has consequences. A young man in a progressive uprising hoodie shouted from the aisle, "You don't get to hide behind the Constitution to spread bigotry." The crowd stirred. Some clapped in support. Others booed the interruption. Karoline didn't flinch. She calmly set down her Constitution, looked directly at the protester, and responded into the mic. "I'm not hiding behind anything. I'm standing in front of everything they want to tear down." More murmurs. The moderator stood to regain order, but Karoline beat him to it. "To those of you who disagree with me," she said, turning toward the student. Protesters. I respect your right to speak. I didn't ask anyone to silence you, and I never will. That line landed. Some of the protesters paused. Here's what I won't respect, she continued, her voice still calm, still steady. When one side of the argument decides the other side isn't allowed to exist. A girl in the front row, folded arms and skeptical eyes, stood up. Then what about hate speech? She demanded. What about when people like you use freedom to harm others? Karoline nodded slowly, acknowledging the question. Hate speech exists, she said plainly. But who gets to define it? The person in power, the trending hashtag, or the loudest voice in the room? Silence again. I've never used my platform to threaten anyone, she added. But I've used it to question everything, and that's what makes them nervous. One of the panelists, a professor from New York, leaned into his mic and muttered, You sure seem rehearsed. Karoline turned to him, eyebrows raised. I'm not rehearsed, she said. I'm prepared. There's a difference. The audience broke into scattered applause. Karoline took a breath and looked around the auditorium, locking eyes with the students who had shouted her down moments earlier. You don't have to like me. You don't have to agree with me, she said. But if you want to shut me up instead of outer argue me, maybe you're the one who isn't ready. This time, even some of the protesters sat down, not in agreement, but in acknowledgement. And that's all Karoline needed. She hadn't won them over. She'd made them stay. The moment Karoline stepped off the stage, her phone vibrated nonstop. 23 missed calls, 54 unread messages, but none of that mattered compared to the first push notification on her screen. And read. The thread is now trending #1 nationwide. Sarah rushed up behind her. You broke them. CNN split. MSNBC is calling it a meltdown. And Fox already has a lower third. Karoline versus the squad. Karoline didn't react. She just placed the folder back in her bag, adjusted her cross necklace, and calmly asked, Did AOC respond yet? Sarah paused, eyes wide. She's typing. Seconds later, a new tweet appeared on Karoline's lock screen. When you need to read someone's tweets out loud on stage for clout, maybe your own words aren't strong enough. But I'm glad you finally read something. The crowd backstage erupted in conflicting reactions. Some groaned, others laughed nervously. Karoline scrolled once, twice, then locked her phone. Good, she said. She's scared. At that exact moment, newsrooms lit up. MSNBC, Karoline Levit, brave or brazen. Campus speech sparks national debate. Fox News. Karoline exposes AOC's hypocrisy, and she did it without raising her voice. The View, it was performative. AOC's tweets weren't even meant for her. X, formerly. Twitter, one user posted, AOC told us to silence her. Karoline read the whole indictment back with footnotes. Another, I don't like Karoline. But she didn't flinch. That's what shook me. Within 30 minutes, the clip of Karoline calmly reading AOC's tweet thread had hit 2.8 million views. Edited versions flooded YouTube. Reaction videos piled up. The moment she read, "We silence her or she spreads," became the centerpiece of every discussion. Late-night shows made jokes. Podcasts exploded with takes. Young women stitched the speech on TikTok, pointing to Karoline's steadiness. But the battle wasn't over. AOC tweeted again that evening. I don't debate with puppets. I debate policy. If she wants a real fight, she can face me live. No stage tricks. The bait was obvious. Sarah looked at Karoline. She wants you in the ring, for real this time. Karoline didn't blink. She doesn't know I came prepared for round 2. The moment she posted that first tweet, she pulled out a second folder. I have her deleted tweets, her archived threads, and her flip-flops from the last 3 years. Sarah's eyes widened. You're really going to read those too? Karoline smiled faintly. Not read them? She looked straight ahead. I'm going to televise them. The CNN invitation came at 8:46 a.m. the next morning. It wasn't casual. It wasn't polite. It was war paint dressed as primetime diplomacy, America at the crossroads, free speech, power, and the new political divide. 2 guests, 1 stage. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Karoline Levit. Karoline read the email once, then again. "They think they're hosting a conversation," she said, handing the phone to Sarah. "But I'm walking in with the closing argument. The prep wasn't just intense, it was surgical." Karoline pulled clips from past interviews where AOC flip-flopped. On-campus speech, scolded Elon Musk for censorship, then praised the same tech policies that banned conservative voices. She had screenshots, links, archived tweets, even a 2019 podcast where AOC said, "I'll never advocate for censorship, even when it's hard to hear what people say." Karoline circled it in red. "This is my Exhibit A." By 6:55 p.m., she stood outside CNN's Manhattan studio. White blazer sharp, folder in one hand, Constitution in the other. Inside, Anderson Cooper was already live. "We're about to witness one of the most anticipated conversations of the year, a progressive icon and a conservative lightning rod. Both young, both fierce, but only one can control the narrative tonight." The room darkened, the intro music faded, the lights hit, and the cameras rolled. "Welcome to America at the Crossroads," Cooper began. "Tonight, we're joined by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and former White House Press Secretary Karoline Levit." Applause thundered, but it wasn't unified. Karoline's eyes didn't flinch. AOC smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Cooper turned to AOC first. "Congresswoman, you said Karoline should be silenced. Do you stand by that?" AOC, ever polished, chuckled. "I said dangerous rhetoric needs to be challenged, and if that makes people uncomfortable, maybe it should." Karoline waited. No interruption, no flinch. Cooper turned to her. "Miss Levit, your response." Karoline opened her folder. "I brought the receipts." She placed the printed tweet on the table. "Anderson, she didn't challenge me. She campaigned to erase me." She slid the 2019 podcast quote across to him. "She doesn't believe in censorship only when it benefits her side." AOC narrowed her eyes. "That quote's out of context." Karoline smiled. "I have the full audio. Want me to play it?" The room tensed. Cooper blinked. "Are you saying?" Karoline nodded. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to read the record, line by line." Karoline's fingers hovered briefly over her phone, then tapped play. From the tiny speaker, AOC's voice emerged. Crisp, unmistakable. "I'll never advocate for censorship. Even if I hate what they say, I'll defend their right to say it." It was dated, labeled, sourced. Silence blanketed the studio. Anderson Cooper blinked, thrown slightly off script. Congresswoman AOC cleared her throat, tried to laugh it off. Context matters. That was 4 years ago. Karoline leaned in, her voice low but sharp. "And yet, just 24 hours ago, you tweeted that I should be silenced. Not debated, not challenged, silenced." She pulled out another sheet. This one's from 2021. You praised Twitter for removing accounts that threatened democracy. But last month you criticized Elon Musk for letting those same accounts back. AOC interrupted, her voice tightening. "Those accounts spread violence." Karoline calmly overrode her. "They shared articles just like I do." The crowd stirred. Cooper tried to interject. "Let's stick to the issue of public platforms." Karoline raised a finger, not to silence, but to signal there's more. She tapped her phone again. A second clip played. AOC on a podcast in 2022 praising a controversial university speaker ban. "If certain voices trigger violence or hate, we don't owe them a microphone." Karoline looked directly at her. "And I guess I'm one of those voices now." AOC was losing her rhythm. Her posture tightened. She shifted in her seat. "You manipulate what I say," she snapped. "You cherry-pick." Karoline lifted her folder and calmly fanned open. "I brought the whole tree." The audience murmured louder now. Clips from the debate were already being clipped, posted, retweeted. A trending hashtag emerged in real time. # Karoline has receipts. Anderson looked stunned. "You're saying Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is intentionally inconsistent?" Karoline didn't hesitate. "I'm saying she doesn't believe in silencing all speech, just speech she can't control." AOC scoffed. "You're twisting the truth." Karoline turned to her, eyes locked. "No, Congresswoman, I'm quoting you out loud, unedited, on record. Exactly what you tried to prevent." The lights overhead buzzed slightly. You could feel it. The power was shifting. The narrative, once tightly gripped in curated threads and applause lines, was slipping, and Karoline wasn't even raising her voice. She was just pressing play. AOC sat forward, frustration brimming now, mask of calm slipping. "You think reading tweets and playing sound bites makes you some kind of truth teller?" she snapped. "You're just a megaphone for the right wing. You don't stand for freedom. You stand for chaos, for division." Karoline didn't blink. "I stand for something you've forgotten." Congresswoman AOC smirked. "And what's that?" Karoline paused. "Just long enough," then said clear into the mic. "The right to speak, even when it makes people like you uncomfortable." Gasps rippled through the studio. You could feel it shift that moment when the air gets heavy. When the audience isn't sure whether to applaud or hold their breath, Karoline leaned back, calm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't clap back. She let the weight of the truth do what noise couldn't. AOC laughed, but the sound was hollow. "You're a fraud, Karoline. You don't believe in unity. You came here to perform." Karoline didn't even look at her. She turned to Anderson Cooper. "You asked if this was a debate," she said. "It's not." She looked, back to the camera. This was a mirror, and I held it up. Not just to her, but to everyone watching who still thinks censorship is strength and silence is virtue. Anderson, usually composed, was visibly unsure how to pivot. "I think we need a break." But the audience had already decided. Applause erupted. Not from everyone, but from enough. From those who had come skeptical. From those who hadn't expected her to hold the room with evidence, not emotion. From those who had once followed hashtags, but now saw the thread unravel for what it really was. Not a call to protect democracy, but to control it. The live comment stream on CNN's digital broadcast surged. She destroyed her without yelling. Once. "This isn't just politics. This is principle. Karoline just gave a master class." AOC sat stiffly, arms crossed, jaw tight. Karoline gathered her notes slowly, deliberately, her white blazer catching the light. As the screen faded to commercial, Anderson's voice was caught faintly by a hot mic. That wasn't a debate. That was a dismantling. The second CNN cut to commercial, the internet exploded. Karoline read it, unedited truth, thread by thread, all trending, all climbing by the second. Within minutes, Fox News posted a highlight reel titled "Karoline versus AOC the night the thread broke." A 12-second TikTok clip just Karoline saying the right to speak, even when it makes people like you uncomfortable, hit 5 million views before midnight. On X, conservative accounts declared, "She walked in with tweets, she walked out with a movement." But it wasn't just the right. Even some moderate liberal voices hesitated before hitting send. A Columbia student posted, "I don't agree with her politics, but she didn't lie, and that's rare." A centrist commentator tweeted, "This wasn't a takedown, it was a revelation." AOC had sound bites, Karoline had facts. Meanwhile, AOC's account stayed silent for hours. No victory tweet, no rebuttal thread, just silence. And in that silence, Karoline's presence grew louder. She walked out of the CNN studio into a swarm of cameras. Reporters shouted questions, but she didn't grandstand. She held up the Constitution. In one hand, the now crumpled tweet printouts in the other. "My job isn't to yell louder," she said. "It's to make sure truth echoes longer." Trump reposted the clip minutes later. "She's a star. The squad is crumbling and the new generation is rising proud." Breitbart ran with Karoline didn't blink. AOC did. The Atlantic ran a more cautious take. Levit's calm could change the conservative playbook. And MSNBC, they aired a panel arguing that Karoline's dangerous rhetoric was veiled behind polished delivery. But even some guests hesitated to criticize her directly. In the days that followed, campus groups invited her to speak. Young conservatives made her words into merch. Even independents began quoting her final line. This wasn't a debate. It was a mirror. AOC returned to social media 3 days later. No thread, no fight, just one vague post. "Politics shouldn't be a performance. We need substance." But it was too late. Karoline didn't need to perform. She just needed a microphone and the truth their threads were trying to bury. And when she read it out loud, America listened. In an age where tweets are weapons and silence is strategy, Karoline Levit chose neither. She chose the microphone. And she didn't just defend herself, she exposed the entire game, one page at a time, one lie at a time. And when the dust settled, it wasn't just a thread that unraveled. It was the illusion that anyone could silence her. Not now, not ever.